So this is about feedback. So it seems to me that we're kind of at the moment these days surrounded by opportunities to give feedback, um, and I think in many cases this feedback there may be alternative reasons why this is being done. And often this is kind of dressed up as a form of customer service, isn't it? But probably it's much more really about enabling organisations like Amazon to target us so they can, offer us even more opportunities to spend money with them. And there are things like at universities, for example, where you have the importance of the student survey. And so it becomes a big deal for universities to score well on that. And so I sort of think that's a classic example of like first and second order aims getting reversed, because you could argue that the main purpose of what the students experience is learning stuff and being educated, and ideally the same focus for us. But what happens is, it feels to me over a period of time, is the student survey is kind of wrapped up in other things, and in the end that becomes almost like the point. So the point of it is not that the students learn about whatever the topic is, but the point is that we do well on the student survey. So in that way, in a way, the kind of the second order thing, the survey, starts to become like a first order thing. But it seems to be also feedback often kind of assumes there's been some performance, and it feels to me like in life often there are things that happen that transcend something like performance. It's much more about human connection or marking a moment in life, and it's not about, or it should be less about the performance. So I suppose things like sex could be an example. I've worked in schools, and where the head was particularly good, or a particular school, I always think he did so well was end of term assemblies and end of term messages to staff, sort of saying goodbye to teachers. I always felt he worked really hard at that and kind of struck the right tone. But in a way, I suppose I'm kind of, in a way, although he's not going to ever see this, I'm kind of judging his performance, I suppose. But it seems to me to be completely inappropriate to sort of give him feedback on that. A best man's speech, I guess, is another example where, the idea is that, the best man says sort of nice things about the bride and the groom and kind of wishes them all the best together on their wedding day. So theoretically, I suppose that's another thing that should transcend feedback. I was once in a situation where a student had died very sadly, or recent died, and there was a sort of an event to mark his passing. He'd come from quite a long way away, and his parents came and so on. And at that, I was asked, because I probably knew him better than any of the tutors, I was asked to say something, and I always remember that his at the point after all this sort of the ceremony, his mum coming up to me, and I was, I hope I've got this right, because it felt like a really important thing to do. I remember his mum thanked me, which was fine, and then she was almost like in effect giving me feedback on what I'd done. I was like, that's really lovely, because it was positive, but this really isn't a moment for feedback, I don't think. So in 2013, my dad died, and he was a pretty devout atheist. So at the funeral, at the crematorium, my brother and myself, we put together kind of a program. So we read out a poem that we'd written. We did a kind of potted biography of his life with hopefully a few funny bits in it, and then we read a poem, sort of from a proper poet. And to be honest, afterwards, it's always such an emotional thing. I felt really drained, and we were kind of mingling before going off to the wake, which is down the road. And the funeral director came up, and so I went to say, thank you very much for all you've done, helping us organise the day. And that thing where he was really, really clearly wanting to talk a bit more. So he said, that was great. He said that was great. So I thought, I see this is, He said, yeah. He said you deliver that so well. He said, I go to lots of these things. Well, obviously he's a funeral director, and they're often never as good as this. He said, even vicars who they don't do it as well as you. And I was thinking, that's lovely that you're saying that, but honestly, this is like a personal thing, to my dad. Really, I don't see this as a performance. And then he said, he said it wasn't just what you did. He said, I kind of really like the way you did it, and then I had a moment, like a moment of clarity came to me. I thought, well, this is amazing, really, because I'm here at my dad's funeral, and we've done stuff and done the presentation, and even at this moment, I'm not free from this whole business of getting feedback